Welcome to The Last Word on Product Marketing, a podcast hosted by Liza Cichowski, founder of Last Word Marketing. Liza helps MarTech and AdTech companies align product strategy with marketing execution. On her podcast, Liza and her guests talk about how to avoid pitfalls and achieve success in product marketing.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the Last Word on Product Marketing podcast. I'm Liza Cichowski, a fractional product marketer and consultant with Last Word Marketing and the host of this podcast. I'm thrilled today to be talking to Soizic Sacrez, who is Vice President of Marketing at Interactive Advertising Bureau, or IAB, which empowers the media and marketing industries to thrive in the digital economy. IAB has members from over 700 leading media companies, brands, agencies, and technology firms. They also do research on interactive advertising and educate the wider business community on the importance of digital marketing. Soizic has been at IAB for nearly 10 years and currently leads IAB's thought leadership efforts, where she works to position the organization as an agenda setter in the digital, marketing, and media industries. She contributes to their core messaging and makes sure that IAB is on brand across all their channels. On this podcast, we talk a lot about messaging and positioning, so I'm excited to get into that with her. I usually speak to marketing leaders who work in-house at technology and media companies, so talking to Soizic is a unique opportunity to get a wider industry perspective, and I'm so grateful that she's agreed to come on the podcast. Welcome, Soizic.
Thank you, Liza. Hello, everyone.
So as I said, IAB is a trade association, and in that capacity, it plays a key role in setting industry standards and frameworks. And that sets up some challenges that are a little different than at a corporation. So Soizic, what are some of the challenges IAB faces when it comes to rolling out standards and solutions to its members, and what does the process kind of look like?
Yeah. Well, at IAB, as you mentioned, our role is to empower the media and marketing industry. We want them to thrive in the whole digital marketing ecosystem. And so we bring all those parties together. It's friends and foes. And so it started with IAB, kind of the standard ads. If you remember, kind of like the 728 by 90 leaderboard or the 300 by 250 medium rectangle. Well, those were the IAB ad sizes, and I think a lot of people back then knew IAB that way. But obviously, IAB has evolved since, and actually next year we're going to celebrate our 30th anniversary. So now it has grown into having centers of excellence, and that's how we interact with our members. The way we work with our members is that they can be part of different committees, councils, where we gather all those members. So this is how IAB overall wants to provide uniformity and consistency in the digital advertising process. Some of the challenges are to reduce frictions between the different negotiating parties, safeguarding consumer privacy, enabling responsible data use. And so for that, we provide insights, we provide tools. Our members are encouraged to participate as experts. So each company member can have their experts participate in the relevant committees, councils, working group, task force. They all come to the table together to move the industry forward, and each member company can then decide and work with others and decide on the key outputs for that year and what the industry needs the most.
Can you talk a little more about how you drive adoption of guidelines and standards and best practices? You mentioned that because you do have 700 members that at times, of course, there's going to be opposing viewpoints and a little bit of friction, but you're there to create consensus, right, as an industry. So what strategies do you use to get buy-in from members and the industry at large?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are driving consensus and encouraging adoption of the standards, guidelines, best practices. However, we're not an enforcing agency. So it's upon our members to make to embrace. But our goal is to provide the best tools and resources to the members and to the industry. It starts with kind of bringing together all the parties and having open debate, having those discussions, agreeing on the priorities for the year, kind of our roadmap, but also key initiatives. So for instance, in the committee or councils, you may have some chairs, co-chairs from different companies that are going to help also and be a bit more involved. Everybody is volunteering their time for the good of the industry in a sense and working with their peers. and obviously you're going to have some members more or less active and also at different times of the year, depending also what they have probably happening in their own company. But overall, we do have people that are really engaged, and that's how we bring them together and really encourage having those different viewpoints at the start, so that to then define kind of like what will be the project and initiative. When we have, like, for instance, report, our marketing team is going to use all the marketing channels that we have. We use a lot email marketing since we have most of the contacts also of our members. So we have some email newsletters, dedicated emails, partner newsletters. We also use our social media channels, primarily LinkedIn, but also X, YouTube as relevant if we have some videos. We do also a lot of PR and using the subject matter experts point of views, both from internal to IAB, but also those, again, co-chairs, active members of the different groups. And kind of the old arsenal that I'm sure everybody uses from search engine marketing or Google Ads. We also provide kind of webinars, in-person and virtual trainings. With the state of data report, for instance, that just was released recently, there was a focus on AI and how it's appending how media campaigns are executed. So looking at it from a brand perspective, or an agency perspective, a publisher or technology platforms, what are the things that are recommended? There's even a companion guide that provides kind of a playbook to give an AI-driven approach for smarter marketing and measurement, and looking at all the tools that it can provide, like from real-time optimization, predictive modeling, performance measurement, all those type of things, but looking at it and providing specific recommendations. And again, then it's upon our members to decide what they want to use, how they want to use it. But from a marketing standpoint, we are driving that awareness that resource is there, it's free, it's open to the industry.
So when you're introducing something new, whether it's this AI announcement or other guidelines around privacy, how do you ensure that the members are going to take it up and use it and be successful with it?
Well, I think the great thing about IAB is that, again, we bring the whole ecosystem together. So we bring them all into a room, agree or disagree, and then kind of roll up your sleeves to produce a set of best practice or guidelines or research all the tools. And I think obviously the members of that committee or council are more involved, have a vested interest, but we then disseminate it to the members at large. It's going to start with the advisory boards that are going to kind of look at the general directions of what we want to do and drive the agenda for the year. And I can give you an example, like, for instance, personally, before I joined IAB's marketing team, actually, I was a member also of IAB at my two previous companies. I worked at that time in Hispanic media, so I was part of the IAB multicultural committee. Worked with peers and competitors at that time, from like Univision, Televisa now, on Telemundo. And then although we were competitors, we all agreed on what would move the needle in terms of investment in digital advertising and multicultural markets, what was needed for Hispanic media in terms of resources or tools. And what IAB can do is bring like resources together that each individual company wouldn't necessarily have the budget to do. I remember we worked a lot with both Comscore and Nielsen. We even did a whole series through IAB, kind of like a road shows with case studies from those different parties that gave kind of a platform for our members. It starts with those people in the different committees and councils, but it can go also beyond. And we're soon going to be also working on new terms and conditions for the industry. They're going to go through a public comment phase. It's open to everybody to provide feedback on that first draft, tell us what we might have missed or what should be added, and then releasing the final, and then kind of promoting with that whole marketing arsenal from like learning and resources.
Sure. So it sounds like your members also will support the marketing of a new announcement as well, or a new framework, particularly if they had a leadership role in crafting it. Can you talk more about how you get companies more engaged with the initiative process and rolling it out?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we do have at IAB things for all levels of seniority. So we mentioned there are those big kind of senior leadership type of things, but there's also for the people who are more junior, we have learning and development platforms from training, from online courses. We always say that IAB is a bit like a gym membership. So joining is important, but if you want to benefit, you need also to put in the effort. So that means participating in those committees and councils and working group, taking the training, learning about the resources. I would say every member and the industry needs to roll up the sleeves and also put in the effort.
That's a great analogy. I love that. You only get out of it what you put into it, right? It's not enough just to have the gym membership. You have to go and do your reps.
Exactly.
So, when we think about education and thought leadership and the different initiatives that you've been speaking about, how do you develop kind of go to market for the year and prioritize the initiatives you're going to tackle with your members?
We're going to be leveraging that peer-to-peer collaboration, but to your point, it starts first in looking at the year ahead, but also the few years ahead and what are the top priorities. So, for instance, there's a new commerce media board. There's also a new creator economy board. So when we're looking at different things that are going to bring those experts in some of the new companies and the whole ecosystem together, we really value having both the sell side and buy side point of view. So it's really looking at it holistically and looking at what's needed with the emerging technology or things that have been there for a while but are growing. So we're not going to be able to make everyone happy, but we are kind of agreeing with the boards and advisors, in each committees, councils, and groups, what are going to be the top priorities. We do have also what we call some leadership summits. So through the year, for instance, we have a video leadership summit and a measurement leadership summit in the summer, where we bring also specifically some senior executives within those arena together and really more to, again, do peer-to-peer discussions, exploring the current challenges, the current needs. The other aspect is at the beginning of the year, we have every year our IAB annual leadership meeting, and that's our agenda setting event also for the year. We address there in 3 days all the different topics and tracks that are important for that year and for the coming years.
Yeah, it seems like things move so quickly. To be able to plan out a couple years in advance must be challenging, particularly in this industry where they love to chase the next shiny new thing. And these are innovators, right? So they're moving so quickly at their own companies as well.
Yeah. Well, again, we're planning ahead, and obviously we are also with our research and insights team trying to be ahead of the trends and of the insights. Every year we have a big IAB PwC advertising spending report that we do every year that we've done for over 25 years, like almost 30 also. That looks really at where the industry is going and the growth. So we have kind of internal also some ideas of where things are going. But to your point, there are things that can be also surprising every year and where we're going to have to reallocate resources. So we plan as best we work, and actually our project management team has been kind of looking at the whole roadmap. We planned for it, but I think we always say there's kind of like almost an 80-20. We plan for 80%. We try to leave a 20%, for resources where we can have more agile content or be not only reactive, but actually proactive in certain topics that we see emerging and kind of like taking action as needed. Oftentimes, like as much as we would like to have kind of the whole plan for the year, things get shifted or new things come. But overall, there are still certain things where we are keeping kind of our North Star and the key topics that we want to work on.
Sure. So, in a private company, product marketers usually focus on adoption and retention as the success metric. But what is the success metric that you focus on in terms of your key KPIs or channels that matter the most to you?
Well, we have different types of KPIs depending on the project. But in general, I would say overarching, a lot of it is still going to be awareness of the different projects that we do. And there's going to be a PR, email marketing, social media as being kind of three of the key pillars. But we do look from a KPI standpoint. We're going to look, for instance, at our website, traffic, page views, number of downloads, and kind of the basic. And then after that, obviously, there are some different elements, such as webinars, LinkedIn Live that we're doing now, or other things where we're going to have the specific metrics for those, which are going to be based on registration, attendance. We usually have a VOD. A big aspect is going to be on registration and attendance, the quality of the speakers, but also obviously we do have sponsorships also for those events and kind of making sure that the experience overall, I think there's a quantitative aspect with those different metrics, but there's also the qualitative aspect. So we usually, after large events, do a poll, check what our members and non-members thought about the event, what they think we should do better next year. Like for instance, at the end of last year, we had a creator economy ecosystem mind maps. That's a bit of a different format than what we do usually because this is kind of a newish area. The first step was for us to kind of bring folks together to create a visual reference of the interconnected components of that creator ecosystem and really looking in terms of the advertising opportunities, but also how the different actors are working together from brands, agents, creators, but also how they are interacting. What's the intersection with marketing and media? And that map was released in December and for feedback from the whole industry. And now we're having that creator economy board that's part of the Experience Center, looking at what we're going to do and how we are measuring certain things within that market, which would be different type of metrics. Again, as you know, the influencers are going to be more like on their followers, but like as it relates to advertising, brand integration might have as a different aspect than you would have on traditional advertising. So that's why, I mean, each kind of project or initiative might have their own set of KPIs that would make sense for that particular
That makes sense.
initiative.
That makes sense. It depends on the issue and the campaign. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about privacy, because that seems to be the number one issue in digital media and advertising for several years now. It's a very big topic. Can you talk about one of the initiatives you've launched in this area to educate the industry?
Sure. Data privacy and privacy compliance has been top of mind, I'm sure, for every marketer or should have been in the past few years. There's so much work. In the US, it started with the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. Then we have now 20 states that have been also enacting some state laws, privacy laws. And so our legal team has developed some guidelines for companies to look at their own compliance. Thus, we have a public policy team in Washington, D.C. that provides education and learning opportunities for the government staff, for the member of Congress, but also having kind of that interaction. We do have also an initiative that's called Internet for Growth, with like raising awareness of the impact of some of those laws on smaller companies, because oftentimes the laws are thinking of the big corporate, but it might have also an impact of someone with their blog or podcast. So we've been doing a lot of work on the ground, as well as our legal team working with the chief privacy officers, the legal counsels at all the different companies within the whole ecosystem as well, that it be publishers, brands, agencies, or others. A regulatory landscape that's evolving so rapidly. And the goal is to help member companies balance complying with those new requirements under each state privacy law, but also enhancing scalability and efficiency with the compliance program. I mean, at IAB, we are actually advocating to have a federal privacy law. We think that would be way easier than having all those multiple state laws with their slight differences. But right now, again, there are some hope that we're going to have that soon. But at the moment, we're helping our members find a path forward with those and have some tools and resources for it.
Makes sense. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to learn a little more about Soizic and her career journey. Welcome back. We're speaking to Soizic Sacrez, who is Vice President of Marketing at IAB. So Soizic, let's talk a little more about your career journey. Was there a time in your career that shaped the way you approach leadership and decision making today in your current position?
I think there are different kind of milestones, I would say, that have shaped how I've been thinking about marketing and kind of taking leadership of that. I actually started in product marketing at Xerox when I was in France. Xerox has a philosophy where it starts with learning about the different product benefits, features, how to sell the product, manage objections and all that. And my role was to market a new multi-function series of like copy machine, like those little copy machine fax scanner that you had. So looking at it both from the product mix, like pricing, product marketing, to prepare also kind of the go-to-market plan for our region for the sales training and material. I think the key of going in client meetings also with the sales team and hearing firsthand those objections or questions and preparing the right documentation, training, looking at the projections and the tracking. So the next step was working in digital media. I've worked closely with both kind of the sales team and the content team. So I felt marketing is always kind of in between almost, I would say. We are kind of the translator almost of, so when I was in media, that was between kind of the content team and the sales team and kind of that idea of the separation of church and state, that you have between the newsroom and the talents and what they're going to do or not,
Sure.
and the sales team and the advertisers, but having the marketing in the middle, kind of needing to find the right balance and navigating kind of like between those two types of customers, like our advertisers, sponsors, but also the end user and reader, and building that trust, finding the right balance for both sides. And now evolving into IAB and IAB Tech Lab, that has been the same thing. When I started at IAB, I worked a lot with the Tech Lab team. So it was also kind of translating to the business side the aspects of ad tech and finding kind of that simple narrative or making it accessible to the non-tech savvy audience or even to the sales team. I feel always kind of marketing is in between that translator, and finding that balance has been kind of key.
It really is, particularly in product marketing. And it sounds like your background is perfectly suited for what you do currently at IAB, of kind of having that sitting in the middle position.
I enjoy that.
Yeah, that is part of the fun of marketing. So we're going to wrap up very soon, but is there a piece of advice that you received maybe earlier in your career that still influences your approach today?
I think when it comes to marketing, it's kind of going back to basics, almost like focusing on your target audience. What are their challenges? What solutions are we bringing? And like, what's the pain point that they might be facing? And how do we solve it? Like, and even now when we present certain things, it's like, why should they care? Because at the end of the day, the audience has only a limited time, limited attention. Why should they even read like a blog post or a press release or even the material that we have? I think as a marketer, you need to grasp in the first few minutes or on your email subject line or on the ad, like having that key element on like, okay, what solution am I bringing to you and what am I solving for you is kind of key. And I feel like marketing has almost part art and science, like where you have certain things where we talked about KPIs and metrics. You're going to analyze the market and the audience and plan well and do your projection. But then you also have to focus on the narrative, the storytelling, the creative aspect, and kind of looking at that. And then you go back to the science with tracking and optimizing and all that. And I think it's a mix like of trusting doing that part, but trusting also your guts and your creative aspects and being curious about exploring new technologies. It's kind of trying new things and see what works, what doesn't, because it's a constant improvement process.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on The Last Word on Product Marketing. Soizic, well, how can people get in touch with you before we wrap up here?
And reach out via LinkedIn. I think that would be the easiest. And if I may also, we do have actually a new initiative from the IAB Tech Lab. They have a Women in Ad Tech group that is just created and launched recently. They had a first gathering in New York City. So if you're interested, check out iabtechlab.com. So feel free to join.
That sounds Wonderful. I will absolutely put that information in the show notes. This was a really informative conversation. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on all the major platforms and check out my YouTube channel for the video of this conversation. And remember, when sales and marketing are aligned, customer growth is unstoppable. Thanks for tuning in.